Hello and welcome back. So in the previous video, we built the first stored procedure and first logic app API that returns all of the items based on one category code, right? Now we are at the step two. So imagine you're using a mobile app of your client, right? And first you select the category, which was kitchen, for example, and then you return all of the items that they have for the kitchen and appliances. And now, as a user, you're clicking on one particular item, right? So now the mobile app is going to call the second API. It would pass that one item's item ID, and you have to return all of the details for that one item. So let's go ahead and get started. We have already established what we need to do, right? So we're at the stage two, where we have to first create this stored procedure to return items by item ID and then logic app. So let's get started with creating this stored procedure. Let's go to the SQL and let's create another stored procedure, new stored procedure. And as the naming convention that we are using is USP underscore select items by item ID. And the parameter name, the input parameter for this store procedure, as we know, is going to be the item ID, right? Item ID, and again, this is integer. And here we have to write the select statement, but this time we have to select everything. We have to return all of the columns that's available in this table, right? The easiest way to do this is star, and then let's expand the table and let's drag all of the columns, and as you can see, it would copy all of the column names for you. So now you can see we are returning all of the items, not just two images but all four images, and then all the other details regarding this one item, right? And there is one condition. So this is from item table where item ID is equal to the input parameter that we have selected here, right? This is your second store procedure, which would return one particular item in detail based on the item ID. Let's create this store procedure. There we go. And it's easier now, right? As you can see, first you create the store procedure, then you go to the logic app, and you know exactly how you're going to create the API based logic app. So let's go to the logic app. Let's click on logic apps and create a new one. And again, we want to use a similar naming convention that we've used last time. Get items, get item by item ID. And let's create this, right? And just like last time, this time also we are going to start by selecting the HTTP request as a template, right? It saves us some time. Select the HTTP request. So whenever the request is received, again, we have to change the method from post to get, right? So this is HTTP post URL, and let's change this to HTTP get URL. And we also have to add a relative path, and this time the relative path is going to be item ID, right? There we go. And let's hit save. So the first trigger is created for us. Let's add the second action, which is again going to be a SQL server, and execute stored procedure. And here you can see it did not ask us to create the connection because we have already created the connection in the previous example, right? So let's select the server name. Let's select the database name, and this time it should show us two stored procedures, right? There we go. So this time we are working with the select item by item ID stored procedure. Let's select that, and we have to pass the parameter Let's pass the item ID that we received from the relative path. Okay, there we go. Item ID, this is the path parameter, right? And whatever response we receive, we want to send back to the API. So let's select the request and select the response action item. Again, status code, let's just pass 200, and in the body, just like last time, let's select the table parameter, right? So that table would have the entire column. Select the table and let's hit save. So our second logic app has also been created. Let's select the endpoint and let's test this one individual logic app, right? So I'm going to paste this in the browser, right? And we have to pass this item ID here, right? Let's find a sample item ID from the table. So let's select this first item ID 29577, right? Now make sure this is a unique key, right? Item ID is unique for every item, so it will always return just one item, right? Let's select this 29577 and let's pass that as an input parameter 29577, and ideally it should return you that one item in a JSON format. There we go. So item ID is 29577. Here is a title, right? And as you can see, let's go ahead and see how the logic app is showing this history in the run history. And let's hit refresh, and there we go. Succeeded, right? The input parameter, the item ID is 29577, and obviously here is the response. Now you can see this is just one JSON item, right? It has everything regarding that one item. And in the previous API, we were returning a bunch of items based on a category code. So we've just completed creating the second logic app as well. So going back to the design, the original design that we started with, we now have our two logic apps that is using two stored procedures to connect to this database and retrieve either one item or a list of items, and we are returning responses back. Now in the next video, we are going to use the Azure's API management functionalities to publish these two logic app APIs via the API gateway, right? And once that is ready, then we can deliver these two APIs to the mobile app developers. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.